Welcome into the Fantasy Playmakers podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Popolars. You can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. Joined as always by my co-host, Ryan Mackey, who you can find on Twitter at Mackey_FFB. How's it going, Ryan?
Not too bad, man. Getting ready for this apparent winter storm we're getting. I know you said you were about to get some more snow as well. So what about you?
Yeah, 3 to 6 inches is not exactly what I was hoping for on April 21st, but whatever. It's snow. It melts, right? But anyways, we are joined today by a very special guest. It is at Matt2Frosty. It is Matt Seward. He is a writer at the FF League Winners, and he's also a contributor at the Cut FFB. What is up, Matt?
Not too much, fellas. Over here just bracing the winter storm as it hits today. So,
yeah, you got it before us, huh?
Yeah, loving it.
Yeah, who doesn't love snow?
Are you actually getting snow right now, Matt?
Yeah, we got like an inch and a half today.
Oh, really?
I was like, geez, didn't really stick, but
yeah. We're supposed to. I mean, like I said, the weather said 6 inches. If we get 6 inches, I don't know. I might move. I don't know. Maybe I'll go south. Just quit my job and move south. Why not?
There you go. Go to the Carolinas.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Maybe Nashville. Maybe I'll join Jake, Dynasty Jake. There
you go.
I'll see if he has a room available. But anyways, we're here to talk about some incoming rookie running backs and tight ends. I think everybody's excited about this quarterback class and the tight end class. I mean, the top four is pretty stellar tight ends and quarterbacks. We're going to start today with Trey Lance, who is 6'4", 226. He's a junior out of North Dakota State. We're going to start with Matt. How do you feel about Trey Lance, Matt?
I really like Trey Lance. I think he offers some of the highest upside in this class with his ability to escape the pocket and create plays with his legs. I think he is a little bit of a raw thrower. He likes to lean on that back leg a little too often. I do think he will progress. I think landing spot is actually going to be big for Trey Lance. I think with the right coaching and even the right talent around him, he could really thrive and really produce even top 12 QB numbers. Maybe in year two. He's not a guy I would expect to come in and be a steady QB1 or even a steady QB2 at that year one, but it is a guy that I would look to hold and watch develop and watch play over the next course of 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree a lot with you there. I think it was pretty impressive. He came in 2019 and he produced 2,700 yards throwing and 28 touchdowns. I think the big thing that was impressive was his 0 interceptions, though. The question, though, always is the talent level. He did play in a not so talented division or conference, I guess you would say, in college. But the big thing that worries me with Trey Lance, like you said, is he's a very raw thrower. I think that you see a lot of inaccurate throws still at his level. Not to make the Bills connection, but he does remind me a lot of Josh Allen, where he has that just raw arm talent, and he's big, he's physical when he runs. He doesn't necessarily slide, which could hurt him at the NFL level. I mean, the linebackers are much bigger and stronger than at his level that he was playing in college. But I do agree. I think his upside is huge. I mean, he gives you a very good rushing floor. Like I said, I mean, most of North Dakota State's were Trey Lance. I mean, most of those plays and everything that happened in that season was impressively mostly all Trey Lance, whether it was running or throwing. So the upside is huge there. Ryan, do you agree with what Matt said? I think that he would arguably have the biggest upside of the class.
Yeah, I do. I think he has, like Matt said, I think he potentially has the highest ceiling in the class. He's a big guy. What'd you say? He's like 6'5", something like that.
He's 6'4", 226.
6'4". Yeah, so 6'4", 226. Good size. Really hard to bring down in the pocket. I saw him shed a lot of sacks at the college level on tape. The problem with that is not like you said, the competition isn't the greatest over there, so I'm not really sure how well he'd be able to shed off NFL defenders. But super athletic, like you guys said, strong arm. But he has a strong arm where he can throw a fastball in a tight window, but he also has that soft little touch where he can loft throws into open receivers. Versatile playbook at North Dakota State, so he's coming from a very pro-friendly offense. He's smart. He handled protection calls as a redshirt freshman, so you like to see that. Like you said, careful with the ball. PFF only gave him 4 turnover-worthy plays in 2019, and he's a really good improviser when the play breaks down. He's willing to scramble. I agree with what you guys said that he might scramble a little too much, and he did have a lot of designed runs. They actually ran 70% of the time in 2019. North Dakota State did, so he doesn't have a whole lot of throwing reps, I guess you could say, because he had seven games with 15 or fewer attempts in his career. So the arm talent, I think, is there overall. He would just his accuracy could use a little bit of work. I think he could benefit from the same sort of digital mapping that Josh Allen used to improve his accuracy this past year. I know Jordan Palmer and him worked on that quite a bit. I don't see him as a day one starter. I think he'd really benefit from sitting behind somebody even like Cam Newton or Ryan Fitzpatrick or Matt Ryan to really learn how to be an NFL quarterback at the next level. Just a couple of advanced stats that I found on his accuracy from Ian Wharton at NFL Film Study on Twitter. He's actually the worst QB in terms of accuracy of the top 5s from where it stands right now. From the 89 QBs in his database, Lance is 21st from 0 to 10 yards, 71st from 11 to 19 yards, 58th in 20-plus yards, and 57th for his cumulative accuracy. And under pressure, he was 56th. So he definitely has a lot of work to do in terms of his accuracy, but I think if he can, like I said, benefit from that same digital mapping that Josh Allen did, and he can really harness in his arm talent, his natural arm talent, I think he definitely has the highest ceiling in the class.
Yeah. Now, do we think that the 0 interceptions will go to that with like that lack of turnover ability? Do we think it's just because he was so much bigger and stronger and much better athlete playing at North Dakota State? So he didn't have to make those risky throws. He could just take off or was more of a designed run. Like, Matt, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like that was more Lance's abilities? Like, was he making a better decision or smarter decision? Or was it that he has the ability to escape in that type of situation where nothing's open?
I think it's actually more Lance's ability than it is the talent he played against. I think Lance slows the game down mentally. I think he really understands the way the football game progresses through plays, every single play. I think where he struggled to really capitalize on his accuracy was throwing off that back foot. He loved to lean back on that back foot and overcorrect his arm. And that's when you'd see the balls go too far or fall short. It was a bad tendency we saw. And I that's one thing that does kind of scare me with Trey Lance. I don't like that habit at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that his ability to slow the game down, process a play, understand the play. I don't think the inaccuracies come from his mental makeup. I think it comes from the habit of not progressing his entire body through the throw. So I think he has the mental makeup to carve up any defense. I think that's not a problem.
Yeah, I agree. I like the point that you're making that he necessarily isn't setting his feet very well sometimes. He also gets really quiet, I've noticed. Like, sometimes it was very late, almost in 2019, I noticed he quieted his feet a lot in the pocket. You found he like stood still. Like, he was literally just standing there like a statue. And it's not necessarily something I love, but I mean, it was working for him. So I think he's, like you guys said, I think he's going to need some development. I think he could definitely, honestly, if San Fran, say, took him at 3 and just sat behind Garoppolo possibly this season, I think that's not a bad thing. Or if, say, they go at 4 and he ends up in Atlanta and sits behind Matt Ryan for a year or two, I mean, I think that would be his best career trajectory. But either way, I think he does. I agree with you guys. A lot of upside there. To another guy who has a very good rushing floor, someone who's very impressive for a lot of people and arguably is the QB1 of this class. We're going to move on to Justin Fields, who is 6'3", 227 pounds, and he is a junior out of Ohio State University. He has back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons, one in the shortened COVID season. He also produced 22 touchdowns in the shortened season, and he had 41 in 2019. He has a 92.1 QBR according to Player Profiler, which is 96th percentile. Ryan, how do you feel about Justin Fields?
All right, so I told you the other day that I had a lot on him.
Yeah, that's why I'm gonna start him out here near the beginning in case we run out of time. We can ditch out on the tight ends.
I do have a lot on him that because I personally have him. I have two separate rankings. Okay, so I have a ranking as like in terms of NFL prospects, and I have a ranking for fantasy prospects. And I think he's actually my QB1 in terms of my QB fantasy rankings in terms of what he could give you in your fantasy team. So first of all, I like true. So I like the fact that he performed well against good competition. So versus top 25 teams for his career, 68% completion percentage, 5,701 yards, 67 touchdowns, 9 picks, with 1,100 rushing yards and 19 touchdowns. So against top 25 teams, he's able to perform well. I know people were talking about the Big Ten championship this past year against Northwestern, and I can't really give him a pass on that, but he was missing Olave. They had a lot of bad drops that game. Apparently he was playing with a hurt thumb in that game in his throwing hand that might have required surgery. So I don't want to give him a pass.
You can see it on film. Like you can see there's a couple clips of him, you know what I mean? He has it wrapped and he's playing with his thumb and stuff like that. You could tell it was definitely bothering him. He looked very, very bad in that Northwestern game. So something was wrong.
Yeah, you could, like you said, you could see him on tape. They zoomed it on it quite a few times where he's sitting there twiddling him with his thumb and it's wrapped up in that athletic tape and stuff like that. So that definitely was bothersome for him in that game. But obviously he turned it around and had a really good game against Clemson and all that. So, but he's second best in adjusted completion percentage according to PFF this past season. Good runner in the open field, good contact balance. Coppets is good.
Hey, he's skipping. He came in early with a tight end comment. I had to hit the P2W fantasy in there. You know, Nick's a great kid, so guy, however you want to determine it. Anyways, back to Justin Fields.
Like you said, good rushing floor. He's a good runner in the open field, good contact balance. He reminds me somewhat of a smaller, less aggressive Cam Newton, like the way he runs in the open field. I love his play action and his pump fake ability. I think his pump fake, he really sells the ball well. Play action, he hides the ball well. Climbs the pocket really well. Makes something out of nothing quite often, especially in his RPO situations. Like you saw him a couple of times where they'd be running RPO and defenders were able to stay home, but he was still able to bounce outside or get around the defender. So I like the fact that he was able to get around defenses and situations where they blew up the play. He's not a scared thrower of the football either. I feel like some people think that he's kind of like a one read type of guy, but he was 12th in air yards before completion last year, and only 86 of his yards came on screen plays according to PFF. So I think that kind of tells me that he's not looking to just dump balls off. He's actually looking to beat defenses downfield. And he has really good leadership qualities. Urban Meyer and Ryan Day from Ohio State both have raved about his leadership ability. And I think you have to have that at the NFL level. You got to have people that are willing to lead and people that want to get behind a guy like that. I think that's exactly what he does. But I don't think he's absolutely perfect by any means. Yeah, I mean he's not perfect by any means. He does hold on to the ball for a little too long. He has inconsistent pocket presence. Like he'll climb the pocket really well one play, and then the next play a defensive tackle will shed his block, and he won't even see it coming. He'll just get crushed in the pocket. So I'm not quite sure why exactly it is. I don't know if he's looking downfield and waiting for his option routes to open up, or what exactly he's doing when he just looks past defensive tackles. But he's gotten hit pretty good in that situation. And he seems to get his balls batted down a lot at the line of scrimmage. I don't know if you guys noticed that on tape, but he's not huge, but he's taller than average, I would say, for a quarterback. And he got his balls batted down a lot at the line of scrimmage for like I said, whatever reason, don't really know what it is, but he
I
did.
think it's a trajectory reason behind it. Matt, I'm gonna actually let you comment on this too to get you in here because I know you like Justin Fields. But real quick, I think it's like a trajectory / release. I think he just he's using his arm strength to get the balls in there, and necessarily he can float it in there. He does have touch and he does it at times, but a lot of the batted balls I noticed were like a low trajectory that he's almost just trying to gun it in there, and the defensive linemen are just getting their hands up. That's my personal opinion. That's what I saw. I do have that as a note though too, Ryan. I agree that it seems like he gets a lot of balls batted for a 6'3" quarterback. Matt, how do you feel just real quick on like that batted ball type trajectory? That I just found that was a big thing for me too. That it was just kind of like, this is where it sticks for me with Justin Fields. I think he's the best deep ball thrower in the class. I think that he has tremendous arm talent. He has great rushing upside, but I just worry about, almost like Ryan had mentioned, he can take it more than one read, but he does tend to hold the ball at times, and he does double pump, and it's just like this kind of low trajectory type throw, which I don't think is going to work in the NFL if he can't fix that. Is that something else that you noticed? I know that you're pretty high on him, so I want to get you in here real quick.
Yeah, I noticed. I noticed a lot of problems that actually, to me, seem to kind of conjugate into one little area, and I think the area is that the Ohio State system did not allow Justin Fields to really maximize his potential. I think that the Ryan Day system was meant to run it deep and wait for the play to open up, and if the play didn't open up, Justin Fields had to make magic happen, right? And which he did most of the times he could. But the plays that he couldn't, the plays where that defensive tackle did shed the offensive line, that plays where the defensive tackle did raise his hands up, Justin Fields might have panicked. He might have didn't know what to do. He might have just gone for it, and that's when the balls would get batted down. But with the Ohio State offense, you see a lot of deep outs, a lot of deep comebacks, right? You see a lot of 20 yards, and they're coming back. It takes time for those plays to develop. So while it does look like he's locking onto that one read, he's actually dragging the safety deeper and creating an open field for three other receivers to roam free, right? So I think that's a good point. It does happen. I mean, I can't argue it happens a lot on tape where you see that batted balls and Justin Fields not progressing through reads. I mean, it is a thing, but I think it's more towards the Ohio State system than it is Justin Fields himself. I think Justin Fields can go through reads perfectly fine. We've seen in scenarios in the red zone where he had to go through reads fine because you don't run short plays and he dices them up, right? So I think it's interesting. I think Justin Fields is someone that I have, of course, monitored closely along with all the other quarterbacks in this class, and there's really nothing I don't like. Like, I don't think he's a perfect prospect. I think, of course, he could improve on some things, but I think he brings in one of the most complete skill sets we've seen in a long time from what I remember. He brings in that elite rushing upside. He brings in the ability to make three-level throws to all parts of the field. His ability to manipulate a defense. I mean, he does it all. So I love Justin Fields. He's my QB1 fantasy-wise. He's my QB1 NFL-wise. I think he has top 3 potential in the NFL. I think he brings it all.
So you think, are we liking the Jets or are we liking San Fran? Do you think there's a chance he goes to Jack? I mean, he's not going to Jacksonville. I'm pretty sure they already gave the playbook to Trevor Lawrence, I saw. So let's let's say, is he going in that top 3 range, you think, Matt? Or do you think we're looking at possibly Atlanta landing spot?
He has to go top 3.
You think?
I think he has to. I think a lot of this is kind of
the old smoke and mirrors of the NFL.
Smoke and mirrors. I think it's kind of, all right, let's see if we can throw Atlanta off to overvalue their pick, and maybe, I don't know. I'm really not sure why San Francisco would do it. I'm not sure why the Jets would do it. Maybe the Jets think that, because I think San Francisco likes Wilson too. I think that's what I heard somewhere, that they like Wilson. I think San Francisco's perfectly fine with that 3rd overall pick. They're getting Wilson or Fields, right? Mm-hmm. I think if the Jets pass on Fields, it's a tragedy. Yeah, and I think it's another blunder in what's been a blunder of an organization for years now. I like Zach Wilson. I do think he's talented, but Justin Fields is a transcendent quarterback. He will transcend any offense. He's going to transcend any NFL organization. He's going to want players to come play for him. He's going to bring that kind of energy to a team that not a lot of players do. So.
Yeah, I mean, I like Justin Fields. He's my second quarterback, and I agree with almost everything that you guys hit on, and I think you guys covered it well. Ryan, did you have? I know I kind of cut you off a little bit there. Did you have anything to add, real quick, or are we cool to move on?
No, I just had two more things. So the one other thing that I saw that was I was kind of wondering about, and I don't know if this is like the option routes that Ohio State runs. Like Matt said, they run like these deep cuts, deep comebacks routes and things like that, but they run a lot of option routes as well. For whatever reason, he struggles to the right side of the field. Like outside the number, right side of the field, he struggles big time. And on passes 20 yards down the field to the right side, outside the numbers, he's 5 of 15 with 2 touchdowns and a pick. So, and that's for his career. Like, I don't know if they just scheme it that way for him not to throw it there because he doesn't throw it very well, or if he just happened to, maybe they ran an option route that maybe he thought they weren't going to run and he just overthrew him. I didn't get a chance to really dive that far deep into it, but that might be a little worrisome at the next level, but he's also going to have more talented receivers at the next level and a little bit better coaching, a little bit more schematics. So that I'm not too overly worried about, but it did concern me a little bit looking at the tape there. And another little tidbit, you mentioned if he's going to go to San Fran or Atlanta or the Jets or whatever.
I hope you're going to mention the leg. Please mention the leg because I want to mention that.
Yeah, I actually was. His foot stance changed from his first pro day to his second pro day. So Matt Ryan did the exact same thing when Kyle Shanahan came over to Atlanta back in 2015, I want to say. He did the exact same change that Justin Fields made. So I don't know if Kyle Shanahan was in his ear first pro day and said, hey, why don't you try doing this? And Fields obviously liked it because it worked, or what it was, but he did change his footing.
And I think it was more the second day. Yeah, I think it was more the second day. I think Kyle Shanahan asked if he could do it. You know what I mean? I think maybe Kyle Shanahan went to the coaches and was like, hey, can we see if he can do it this way? Because I think that's something that Shanahan likes to do. And I don't know. I think him landing in San Francisco really puts a definite chance at that, almost a toss-up there at 1-1. Like, is it Lawrence in Jacksonville or is it Fields in San Francisco? Because I think him in San Francisco is just – it's tasty. I like it, and I mean, it could be an argument. I really do think. I
mean, I'll make the argument.
I think that both quarterbacks definitely have question marks. I think Lawrence, just everybody's in awe. I mean, he had 3,000 yard seasons. I think that he's just been good for 3 years, and that's a big thing. Where Justin Fields kind of came on the last couple. So, boy, going from Justin Fields to another guy who kind of just burst onto the scene this year. He reminds me, he's kind of the Josh Allen of this class, not in a scale level or anything, but he just kind of appeared out of nowhere as of late. And that's Zach Wilson. He is 6'3", 210. He is a junior and he is out of BYU. He's actually, he's the first of these quarterbacks to have both 90 percentiles for his player profiler stats, which was an 88.6 in the QBR, and he has a 19-year-old breakout age, which I believe is the highest of all the quarterbacks that we're going to talk about, other than possibly Lawrence. They're both pretty close. However, he did have this breakout season this past season, which was a 73% completion percentage, 3,600 yards, 33 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. Matt, why don't you start us off with Zach Wilson? How do you feel about Zach Wilson?
I like Zach Wilson. I've actually come to kind of understand what Zach Wilson is from at least a college standpoint. At first, when he did kind of burst onto the scene these last half year, I wasn't into it. I was like, okay, he's having a great season. I mean, Kyle Trask put up numbers, But then I kind of dove into the tape, and I do like some of the things that Zach Wilson does. I think Zach Wilson can manipulate a defense. I think he is scared sometimes in the pocket. I think the game is a little slower for Zach Wilson than it is for guys like Fields and Lance and Lawrence. I think he processes things just a little slower. I think, but his arm talent it's second to none in the class, in my opinion. I think that his ability to find guys deep, to make throws at high level percentages, I think those are good things to look at. I'm just not sure with Zach Wilson, right? It's one of those things where it's kind of might be more my gut than it is me relying on stats or film. It's more of a thing where I'm like, okay, but I didn't see the requisite things I needed to see for him to make that push, to make that, okay, you're number 2 overall in the class. You're number 3 overall. I get it. Quarterback for a desperate team. I get it. But I just didn't see that it factor, that necessarily, let's go out and we're making this happen. That kind of thing that I see in Fields and I see in Lance and I see in Lawrence, right? So I don't know. It's interesting. I would love to hear your guys' opinions on Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start us off here real quick, Ryan. I actually do see the it factor. Not necessarily not like, oh my God, he's a quarterback, like he's the quarterback, he should be up there. But I think he just has like a gamer to him. He reminds me a lot of like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, where he's just kind of like, he's just out there. He makes plays. He's creative all the time. I mean, he makes throws. He makes shovel pass throws. He makes any type of arm angle change. I mean, he does everything and anything in his power to make plays. And I think that's something that's a tangible that you can't teach. You know what I mean? He's always out there trying to make that play, and he has a knack for doing it. However, I think his mechanics worry me a little bit. He seems to just he has extra movements to his pocket presence that kind of seem weird. There's a couple times I saw on film, like it's a drop back and he kind of just like spins out of the pocket, even though there's no pressure. And I don't know if it was a design play at BYU. Like I said, I'd seen it multiple times. So I don't know if that's just the way that it was almost like their bootleg style, that he just takes it and then spins out. But there was something like that. And then I just don't like, he tends to not really set his feet at times. He kind of always throws off balance, and he has the arm strength to do it. But I'd like to see, I think he's just much more accurate and more precise and rhythm type thrower, that once he sets his feet and everything, he can make any throw out there. And I just feel like he needs a little time, or just like you had said, where the game needs to slow down for him more so. He just seems a little nervous at times, and he doesn't really set his feet, and he's just jittery back there and won't set his feet to throw, almost like Josh Allen. Like when he first came out, he didn't set his feet, he didn't have his base, so his throws were a little inaccurate, they were just off. Where surprisingly, Wilson is pretty accurate in this sense, where he can throw off balance and is accurate. But I agree. I think for me, he's the 3 range, 3-4. I kind of have him right around maybe Lance. I think that they both have good upside. There's just there's more things that worry me than what worries me with Fields and Lawrence. We'll say it that way. How about you, Ryan? How do you feel about Zach Wilson?
I have him as my QB4 in both my prospect ranking and my fantasy ranking. Just that four for him is partially because of his rushing upside that I think he can present at the next level. His like you said, his throwing motion, or the way he throws, is a little unorthodox at times. Like you said, his feet seem to get a little fidgety at times. But when he actually sets himself and he throws the ball, he actually reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers, because there's no like wasted motion. And I'm saying in terms of his throwing style, not anything else other than that. But
no, I agree. That's what I mean. Like that's something that concerns me, is that he doesn't set his feet all the time. Like I think when he sets his feet, he's super accurate and makes all those throws. It's just crazy that he doesn't all the time. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is, but yet it's still accurate. You know what I mean? Like it was surprising to me when I was watching the film, looking at the stats. He only has 3 interceptions. Like I figured he would have been fundamentally with his base a little bit more sound than he was. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, he had 74.1% completion on passes with 30 plus air yards. So, and that was the best in the FCS in the last 9 years. And he has a 95.9 throwing grade against zone coverage, according to PFF. So when he's setting his feet, he's accurate at all levels of the field. Like he can do that. But for whatever, I don't know, maybe it's like playing down to his competition, maybe, or like I don't know what exactly it is, but you're absolutely right about that. Like he does get fidgety, and he does get a little like wiry in the pocket, but he's a good athlete. He when the pocket does break down around him, or even on design QB runs, he shows great athletic ability. He's good in the open field, hard to bring down, and he showed really good work ethic. Like he continuously got better at the next or at college. He wasn't one of these guys that came in and just produced right away, but he continuously got better. So he's obviously coachable. He's obviously listening to what people are telling him, and that's one of the knocks that you have on him is that he only has one true great season under his belt, despite having very few experiences to top level competition. He's 2-4 against top 25 teams, so that could be the talent at BYU. That could just and that they just get beat because they're BYU, or maybe he doesn't have that moxie to go out and beat a top team. But I'm not willing to say that yet because he just there's too small of a sample size. And I think he could. I don't know if it could get better, but his ball speed to me seems a little bit lackluster, especially on his deep balls. Like the ball kind of floats, as opposed to like Josh Allen can rocket a ball 60 yards and it gets there like now, but his kind of just floats off into the distance. Which, like you said, he's got a great arm. He can make the throw. I just don't think. I think the corners at the next level are going to have a little bit more time to react to those deep balls. So that's probably going to lead to more interceptions, but that also could be the inconsistent footwork that he has in the pocket that's leading to that as well. So
I think that could be part of it. He doesn't really drive through. He's not getting that hip motion, you know what I mean, when he's making those throws. And I think there's more strength there, and I think that's something he could clean up. Jordan Palmer is the one who is the quarterback guru. So we'll say Josh Allen and Darnold and them. So I could see him maybe getting a little work in with him, and it might help him, I think, in that aspect.
No, I agree.
But yeah, I mean, anything else that we didn't hit, Matt? I mean, I know you were asking on our opinion. I mean, is there anything that you think that Zach Wilson has that we didn't cover?
I think that's something that's mightily overlooked with Zach Wilson is his ability to improvise. I don't think that necessarily offers that he can go out and get it. I think that he can improvise well. I think he can make things happen relatively more than some other QBs compared in the NFL. I think his ability to escape the pocket is better than most quarterbacks in the NFL. I just don't think he has the requisite arm and processing speed that he will need in the NFL to create those plays in the NFL. That's where I get a little worried. That's where I question things. So these top 4, top 5 quarterbacks in this class are really fun to break down. They're really going to be good. I wouldn't doubt it if all 5 ended up being hits. I mean, I know that's rare, but it's a fun class.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think of all of them, I think you're looking at Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and we'll say Mac Jones, who we're going to talk about next. Those 3 are the 3 that I think have that highest bust rate, which is obvious to say because those are the lower 3 for most people. But I think Zach Wilson is that scary factor. I think he is Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Those 2 are very, very wide range of results. You're either going to get a complete bust or you're going to get a stellar type quarterback. And the other guy that is one of those that's similar would be Mac Jones, who kind of burst onto the scene this year following Tua Tagovailoa. But Mac Jones is 6'3", 214, and he is a junior out of Alabama. Obviously, the benefactor of his playing with the likes of Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith and just a stellar offense there in Alabama. Matt, how do you feel about Mac Jones? I mean, he produced 4,500 yards this year, 41 touchdowns with only 4 interceptions. And I mean, he looked pretty good this year. I know he was up there near the Heisman talk for a while, but I mean, he surprised a lot of people. I mean, he doesn't look like an athlete, but I mean, he definitely can play quarterback, at least at the collegiate level. How do you feel?
He surprised me. I think he has laser accuracy. I mean, his accuracy to be able to pinpoint a ball is some of the best that I've seen, right? So that's something I do consider as something that's great for a guy of, his stature, a guy that's not going to be able to abandon the pocket every play, the guy that's not going to be able to create long 12, 15-second plays with his feet. I think it's going to be interesting when you see Mac Jones get good pocket protection like he did in Alabama, what he can do, right? What he can do. And I like what I saw, but I don't think he has the necessary enough of that to be this high-end QB1. I don't think he has that let's just sit here in the pocket and sling the ball over the football field kind of thing. I think he's more of I'm going to need everything I can get around me, and then I can really be the best I can be, right? So while other players can transcend, like other quarterbacks, I think in this class can transcend players around them. I don't necessarily think Mac Jones can. I think he thrived with Devontae Smith. I think he thrived with Jalen Waddle when he played. Najee Harris, always having that threat of Najee Harris running down your throat. A solid old line led by Landon Dickerson. I think it's interesting. I like Mac Jones. I don't see much upside. I don't see a guy that's going to produce solid QB1 numbers unless every single card falls right for him.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see some of those points. Ryan, why don't we let you go second here on Mac Jones? How do you feel?
So to your guys' point, he's accurate at all levels of the field. He does have very good accuracy. But the issue is that he was throwing to guys that were just absolutely and utterly wide open all year for his entire career as a starter. Per PFF, 600 more yards thrown to open wide receivers than anybody else in the country. 600 more yards. So it's not like no, not at all. It's almost as much as Patrick Mahomes ran in the Super Bowl. But it's one of those things where is it him or is it his level of teammates making plays for him? Because that's when I read that, I was like, I had to make sure it wasn't a typo. I had to go and like look again before I typed it into my notes because that was just insane to me to have 600 more.
I want to defend him a little bit here. Now, can we fault him because he played at Alabama, though? Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
I get it. These are all valid points, and I totally agree with you guys, and I agree with Matt and you where, like, I mean, you're playing with Devontae Smith versus, like, we'll say, I don't even know the top receiver at BYU. I mean, what is, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard because you have a guy who plays at Alabama with this great offense, these great playmakers, even Justin Fields in Ohio State with just great offenses, blah, blah, blah. And then you're getting guys that like a Trey Lance or that BYU with Zach Wilson. Like how do we gauge, you know what I mean? How do we gauge that as far as like a comparison to compare these guys? Because to me on paper, I mean, if you're a stats guy, Mac Jones could easily be in that talk for top 3, but I think most people don't have him there because of other issues. But I just think, Ryan, I'll let you get back to it, but I just feel like it's hard to fault him because he played with such good playmakers. You know, at the NFL level, everybody's good. You know, so like now you're looking at a guy and you're saying, well, he got to play at Alabama. You know what I mean? Everybody in the NFL is at an Alabama level almost. So it's just tough. I just find it hard. I just really struggle with this to compare these quarterbacks like this. For me, it seems easier to compare like a Mac running back to a SEC running back than for me for quarterback. So I'm just kind of curious as to like, do you fault him because he played at Alabama and had all those open guys? You know what I mean, Ryan?
No, I completely agree. And that's why this class is so hard to rank for me anyways, because you can't, like you said, do you take the ceiling with Lance or Wilson, or do you take possibly a not so high ceiling but a higher floor with a guy like Mac Jones? Because he is extremely accurate. He's super smart. Everybody knows about his Senior Bowl practice where he picked up the playbook in one day and was like, and was like commanding the offense after one day, even though he wasn't going to play in the game. Like he knew the playbook page for page right from the very beginning. So, I mean, he's super smart. I think if you put it, regardless of where you put him, he's going to be able to pick up an offense and lead you in the right direction. I just don't think he's not that game-changing quarterback like some of these other guys can be, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, give him a really good defense, he could go make a playoff run and possibly a Super Bowl berth if you give him a good enough defense. Because we've seen guys like Trent Dilfer and Brad Johnson go to a Super Bowl with really great defenses. So it's not like he's like helpless by any means, because he's really competitive. Won big games, performed well in most of his big games, and he's just. I don't know. So to your point, I do have a stat to your point, Jeremy. He is 53.5% of his yards came after the catch, which would be the second most of any QB taken in the first round since 2018 behind Tua, which happened to be a weird coincidence. So is it
weird, or is it just because Alabama has really good wide receivers?
That's the thing. Is it because he's putting the ball ball on point and hitting the guy in strides, or is he just saying, or is he throwing the ball and hitting the guy and they're just taking off? Because I did see a couple plays where he underthrew guys like Waddle and Devontae Smith, and they were just fast enough to pull away from the defender that had to catch up with them after they had to stop or not necessarily stop, but slow down and wait for the ball to get to him. And then Waddle was fast enough to accelerate and get past the defender. So it's touchy with him, and it's not necessarily a bad thing that he does that. It's just not eye-popping.
Yeah, and see, like, you guys are screaming accuracy, and I think he's an accurate quarterback. I don't think he's not. But if you watch film, he's actually a little late on a lot of throws. I mean, if you were really paying attention, he's hitting. Now, I could be just bad at looking at quarterbacks. I could very well be that. But it seems like he's hitting guys on the back hips a lot, and there's a lot of guys, or even I believe it's Damian Pearson showed something on just the other day, clips where he's not making out throws, 20-yard outs, and he's hitting them in the feet. Now, it's not that his arm strength isn't necessarily there. I think he, like you had mentioned, you made point to the Senior Bowl where he picked up the playbook. Yes, he understands formations. And Matt had mentioned where his pocket awareness, I think he navigates the pocket very well for not being a mobile quarterback. But I just feel like at times he seems he's late. And in late throws in the NFL, it just doesn't work. We've seen it. You know what I mean? The throws need to be ahead of guys. And when he hits them ahead, but the deep ball, it's strange because I feel like it's short throws. It's like those short rhythm throws. He seems a little off. But the deep ball, his accuracy is insane. You see him hitting guys, like dropping them in buckets. And he's very confusing to me. I'm very confused with Mac Jones because, like you mentioned, I mean, that I didn't know that stat, but that 53% of after yardage of after catch, like I believe that. I mean, you watch the film, Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith were doing crazy things after the catch, but it's just surprising. You know what I mean? So you figure 53. So he had 4,500 yards. That's roughly 2,800 yards or 2,500 yards were, probably 2,500 yards were probably, after the catch. That's a pretty crazy stat.
One thing I wanted to add was with Mac Jones. I don't think he has a higher floor. I think I see that a lot on, when I scroll on Twitter is, you can take the safer bet in Mac Jones with the higher floor, when I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think I'd still rather have Fields' floor. I'd rather have Lance's floor. I'd rather have Wilson's floor. I'd rather have Lawrence's floor. I just think Mac Jones is the fifth best quarterback in the class. So I'm going to take him as the fifth best quarterback, right? I don't want to sit here and guess floors for rookies. I think that's a very, very dark alley to go down. I think you're going to find yourself either stuck with the bust or you hit gold, just like most of us are doing anyway. So I'm not going to sit here and try to predict floor. I'd rather sit here and try to predict ceiling and project what they could do at the NFL, not what they won't do.
No, and I agree. I think that's a very good point, Matt. I don't think that there's a safe floor with any rookie. I don't care who you are. Even in Jamar Chase, there's no guarantee that Jamar Chase is good. You know what I mean? Yeah, as a prospect, he looks great. But look at all of the prospects who've busted. And we'll even go into Kyle Pitts, who's possibly one of the greatest tight end prospects we've seen in ages. But we've seen that. David Njoku was supposed to be one. Eric Ebron was supposed to be one. OJ Howard. And these guys didn't pan out. So I think the safe floor argument is very flawed, and I'm glad you brought that up, Matt. And I know, Ryan, you had mentioned it, and sorry to rip you on it, but
No,
I was just bringing it up.
No, I agree, but I mean, it's a good point, But
that's the thing, though, is that nobody. I mean, there's a whole YouTube video on guys like Mel Kiper and that missing on picks, saying that this guy's going to be great and this guy's going to be great. Like I just don't think we're ever going to see an NFL where we can just absolutely hit people exactly what they're going to be. I just don't think that's a possibility.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and especially a quarterback. I mean, 90% of their game's in their head. So,
yep.
I mean, you can see him making throws. You can see him do this. But, I mean,
Carson Wentz.
It all has to be – they have to be able to be resilient almost, or it's just all in the head and something that you can't see on film. And only people that know are NFL guys who get to talk to them and have interviews with them. So, let's move on to – yeah. I mean, they're all out there. EJ Manuel, I mean, another Bills quarterback. Just name it. I mean, any Bills quarterback or Dolphins or Jets quarterback for the last 10 years as they've been trying to deal with playing against Tom Brady, I mean. But anyways, let's move on to possibly the next Tom Brady. We'll transition that way. Trevor Lawrence, who is pretty much a pretty close to other than Matt, but a consensus 101 here for most people here in rookie superflex drafts. He is 6'6", 220. He is a junior out of Clemson. He has 3,000 yard seasons, 30 touchdown seasons, and a 24 this year in the shortened season. And he has never thrown more than 10 or 8 interceptions. I think Trevor Lawrence's big thing is that early production. I think that freshman year that he came in and threw for 3,200 yards and 30 touchdowns with 4 interceptions kind of put him on the map, and he just kind of stayed there in that Dabo Swinney offense. Ryan, how do you feel about Trevor Lawrence?
So he's my QB1 in terms of prospect. He's my QB2 in terms of fantasy outlook. I'm actually not going to touch too much on him because I feel like he's just been beat to a pulp with people that review him and that watch his tape and things like that. Obviously, he's got size. He's accurate. He's got a big arm. He's all those things. But like, just some of the different things that I saw doing my research for the show that I didn't really think that I thought were kind of cool. He threw a 55-mile-per-hour fastball as a freshman in high school, and he threw for 330 yards in a junior high championship game. And the fact that he was doing stuff like that at such a young age and just continuously got better is just kind of crazy for me. Like he's just been doing everything that we've seen at the college level since he was a kid. He could run a spread offense at the age of 7 and was able to look off safeties in midget league at age 8. So like he's been taught since a very, very young age to do the things that he's doing at the college level. So his football IQ, him and Mac Jones might be the 2 smartest QBs in the class, but there's just a proven track record of Trevor being just elite at every single level that he's ever been at. Like there is no like gap in his production. There's no gap in his like there wasn't any glaring weaknesses coming out of anything really. Like I know everybody saw that one tape where he's missing the throwing net there at, I think it was at like a national camp for quarterbacks from back into his freshman year college or after his senior year or whatever. But like you don't see the things that are missing out of some of these guys' profiles with him. He's just consistently been great since the age of 7 years old. Like it's just I just don't feel like Jacksonville obviously is picking him at 1.
I mean, he's got the playbook, you know.
Yeah, so he's got the playbook. So I mean, he's already learning the offense, which he probably already learned it already. So he has to go 1 just because of his consistency and his excellence at every single step that he's been at.
I feel like he could be an argument for a guy like, you know, like the NBA where they don't really have to go to college. Like this could be an argument that like,
oh yeah,
could he have came out his sophomore year? Like what would he have been last year? Would he have been higher than Burrow? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, would he have been the 1-1? Would he be in Cincinnati right now? You know, like I just feel like you had said, he's just consistent. He's a model of consistency, and you know what you're getting with him. And I think that's why he's going to go 1 to Jacksonville, because he is. I mean, you look at it. I mean, his stats straight through. I mean, he's got right around the same amount of completions, right around the same amount of attempts, same completion percentage, same yardage, same touchdowns, same interceptions. I mean, he's almost a robot. It's kind of scary. Matt, how do you feel about Trevor Lawrence?
So I'm actually going to use what you guys just said as my thing of why Trevor Lawrence is my QB2. I didn't see the progressions of getting better and better and better, and whether that's because he's already elite is okay argument. I don't think that was the case. I think he did struggle to make throws to the third half of the field. I think he struggled on the long ball. He struggled under pressure. I think there were moments when Trevor Lawrence's game, you saw those weaknesses. You saw those spots where Trevor Lawrence could be exploited. And I didn't see those weaknesses ever get fixed, right? So the argument here would be Justin Fields at QB1. My argument would be that I saw fixes from Justin Fields' game from 19 to 20, right? I saw him correct the things he was struggling with. Well, I didn't see that from Trevor Lawrence. I saw him continue to fall into that Dabo Swinney playbook. I continue to fall into dumping it off and not trusting his arm to go deep and And when the pressure was in his face or eyes, he would check it down, and he would tend to miss, right? So I didn't see the necessary progression I thought I would see from Trevor Lawrence. And while I do think he is transcendent, I do think he's going to be a top 10 QB in the National Football League. I don't think he's the quarterback one of the prospects or a dynasty. I don't think he has the as a complete skill set as Justin Fields does. I just don't think he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid argument. I mean, I can definitely see where you're coming from. And I agree. I mean, what are you chasing in a rookie draft? Most people would argue that it's upside. And is his upside as great as, say, a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance? And the argument can be made, like you said. I mean, you didn't see improvement. Is it like you argue that he was already so elite and like the talent he's playing against doesn't challenge him? You know what I mean?
And that very well could be.
It could be. And I mean, that argument can be made, and the argument can be made that the other guys are better because you saw such a bigger jump. So I can get behind what you're saying. Ryan, Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have the stat that you had for Mac Jones? Did you happen to have the same one for Trevor Lawrence? Like yardage after catch? I'm just curious because you watch a lot of film and he does, like Matt had mentioned, where there are a lot of like shorter throws. I'm curious. Like you see the film, Amari Rodgers is breaking one, Justin Ross is breaking one, Travis Etienne's breaking one. And if it's a little screen pass, I mean, are some of these, how much of this 3,000 yards that he's throwing for is really air yards versus, I guess, yak yards? I mean, if you don't have it, you can get back to me if you're looking it up right now.
I don't have it in front of me, but I do have a stat. That he was, according to PFF, he's first in screen yards in the country. So he had a lot of manufactured touches, a lot of wide receiver, a lot of wide receiver help like Mac Jones did. So I'm not quite sure about the yard after catch stat with him right yet, but I'll look it up while you guys talk about it. I was going to ask you, how'd you guys? Actually, this would be a good talking point. How did you guys feel about his quote in the Sports Illustrated where he was saying how football isn't, how he could live without football, and do you feel like that's something that possibly he could be like an Andrew Luck or retires early if he starts getting banged up in Jacksonville at all?
I personally hate it. As a sports fan, I personally hate it. Right? I don't think it makes a difference. Right? I don't necessarily think it. I mean, it may make a difference come nitty gritty down to got to go drive down the field. Maybe I don't know. It's all the quarterback's mental makeup. In that moment, is Trevor Lawrence going to want to go get it? Sure, when he's at home on a Monday tweeting out, he might not want to go get it, but you know what I'm saying? But as an NFL fan, it kind of irritates me, right? And here's why. Like, if I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan here and I'm sitting here and the franchise has just been abysmal for God knows how long now, right? And you get the saving grace, right? You get the number 1 overall pick. You get Trevor Lawrence, and one of the first things he says is, "I could live without football." I mean, it would kind of get under my skin a little bit. But then I don't think it makes some drastic change in how I view Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to go get it. I think if he's put in a winning situation, he's going to do what he's got to do, go get it. I think he's that kind of player. But I don't think it makes a huge difference. It did kind of irritate me though. I was like, oh, I wish he did have that, Kobe, that Mamba mentality. I'm going to go get it. In which he still could, right? I mean, when you're in the situation, it's different than how you feel when you're at home on your computer tweeting, right? So
I think even you could make that argument of what we had mentioned before, that like he came in and he was so good. Like he was already one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. And like, is he just bored? Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Not that I'm good at anything, honestly, let's be real. But like once you get good at something, sometimes things get boring. Like you're just like, right. All right, okay, I can do it. And it's just sweet. I guess I don't really need it. So like, is it just something along those lines? And maybe once he gets to the NFL where he needs to almost try a little harder, like maybe it's something that reignites that fire that he has. Or it could just be, you could run into that Andrew Luck thing. And you're going to see it more in the NFL, I think, lately with a lot of the concussions. You're looking at Kuechly, you're looking at big name guys that, and ultimately, as much as we love the sport, it's great to watch. Fantasy football is awesome, but they are humans. And I think the day's end, if the guy makes 30 million, plays for 10 years and retires at 30, good for him. I'm 30 and I haven't even made $1 million. So to have 30 million and be retired, he got to do what he loves, and I can see it. I don't know. I think that I'm not going to put too much stock into it because ultimately, as a fantasy owner, I mean, yeah, quarterbacks are a little different, but you shouldn't be looking out, I say, 10 years from now. I mean, you're going to have other quarterbacks on your roster at that point. So it's like it's more of an NFL fan way where you're kind of like, yeah, I wish he had that, like you had said, Matt. But
Yeah, that I mean it's and again it's I do think Trevor Lawrence is going to be great. I think he's going to have that go get it right. I mean again it all changes per situation, right? Like if he's in the AFC Championship game right next year or 2 years from now when he's down 4 and he needs to go drive down the field in a minute 30, is he going to be thinking, oh, I can live without this? No, I don't believe that. I think he's going to think I'm going to go win this game, right?
yeah,
I don't think it's stock. Like I don't think it's some huge drastic. Oh my God, Trevor Lawrence isn't gonna go win. Is it gonna? I don't. That doesn't correlate. I don't think there's a correlation there. I think it's just kind of smoke. I think it's just people are kind of getting a little bored. He tweeted that out. I know because there was rumors rumbling, and when they were questioning Justin Fields' work ethic, which I also thought was just mind-boggling. But
I think this year has been definitely pretty interesting with a lot of the takes from the quote unquote professionals.
right,
I'm not taking a shot at them. I just think that some of the stuff we've seen just seems a little out there. It's almost like they're losing things to talk about, or they're trying to like throw these hot takes out there. And I mean, they probably know more than I do. I mean, they get paid, they do it for a living, but I
think
some
one
of the
thing that's
stuff is just
overlooked with
like,
that too. I think one thing that's overlooked with that, and I always joke about it, is in ESPN, like if we're just gonna like talk about ESPN for a second, it says entertainment, right? So they're gonna do what they can to entertain as well. So not everything is this professional, 100%. This is it kind of information. It's some of it is just entertainment, right? So I do take that as kind of into consideration with some of the stuff, right? So they are really smart. And they are. I mean, I'm not saying not trying to take away from that either. I'm just saying, right?
no, I agree. Why don't we move on? We're pushing that hour mark here. The quarterbacks ran a little long there. Probably could have two different episodes here, but I think the tight ends we can kind of roll through pretty quick.
Yeah.
Why don't
Kyle
we?
Pitts,
Yeah, right. Kyle Pitts. Okay, we're done.
unicorn.
But we're gonna real quick. Let's see. Does anybody have much to say about Hunter Long? I mean, I like Hunter Long. I think he is a very good prospect at say the fourth tight end. I think that he brings a lot. He's a good receiver. He's a good blocker. I think I think if he would have played somewhere other than BC, I think he might have been possibly a little bit higher in the discussion, closer, we'll say, to that Firemouth and Jordan type range. I think he is personally just watching film, but most people probably don't have him as close as say I would. But
so I have the gap between Freiermuth and Long actually closer than the Freiermuth Jordan gap. I think that Long is an incredible blocker. But what I saw, he didn't rely a lot on his back legs, on his back hind legs. He didn't rely much on just pushing with his arms and lunging. He was firm. He was stocky. He got nitty gritty with it. And coaches are going to love that. That's going to earn him play time, right? And that's what tight ends you got to look for that are going to get schemed into the offense, right? So if he can even get schemed in as a blocker and get sent down on 3 routes a game, he can show what he can do with his few routes, right? At least he's getting that opportunity. I think that's huge in Hunter Long's game. I love the way he blocks. He really blew me out of the water when I broke down his tape with his blocking. So I do like Hunter Long. I think he's closer to Freiermuth than Freiermuth is to Jordan.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I honestly have Freiermuth as too, but we'll get to that here in a minute. But Ryan, how do you feel? Any quick notes on Long, or you think we handled it pretty well there? I mean, we got to kind of just speeding through these couple, and then we'll handle Pitts there.
I like Long. The only thing is that he came from a really run-heavy scheme there at Boston College, so he's mainly used as a run blocker. So his blocking is really good, like Matt said. And he isn't very good after the catch or anything like that. Not really a big tackle breaker or anything like that. PFF grade of 13 and for tight ends in the country or in the nation. So I like him. I think he has potential, but like you guys said, he might be a good taxi squad guy to sit while he learns how to be a pass catching tight end at the next level.
I like it. Why don't we talk about Matt's number 2, my number 3, Ryan? I don't know where you have him, but Breven Jordan, 6'3", 245. He's a junior out of Miami. Matt, I know you said you were a little higher on him. I'll let you toss a couple quick notes out there.
Oh, I've liked Breven Jordan ever since the start of this year, and what he showed me this year, I really liked. I didn't like his pro day. I didn't think he really shined. I don't think he came in at the size I was hoping he would come in at. I actually learned a little bit more about his relatively athletic score today. Somebody tweeted, I can't remember who it was, tweeted me out the picture and the little graphic, and it kind of threw me off. He's not the biggest athlete, the most athletic. Might not help his yak translate over to the NFL, but I think otherwise he's a really good route runner for the tight end position. I think he can carry that into the NFL. I think he can really earn play time. He is a solid blocker. He does tend to lunge a little more than I would like at the when you're sitting there run blocking and pass blocking. I don't want you to lunge with your arms. He does tend to do that a little more than some others, but I think he offers some of the highest receiving upside in the class. He's got rock hard hands, right? He can catch through anything. So I really like Brevin Jordan. I think if he gets, and again, I think for tight ends, I want to put this out there that I think tight ends really heavily matter on scheme, and I think that's very overlooked. I think that is something that even with Kyle Pitts, when we get to that, I think that needs to be taken into consideration. They're going to have to be schemed in. Not every offense runs tight ends, so you have to be able to be schemed in to be even fantasy relevant. So I think it's interesting, but I like Brevin Jordan. His receiving upside, I think, is pretty high.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have him mocked in Jacksonville, and I think that could be another, just paired with Lawrence and Chark and all them. I think that Urban Meyer offense, I think that could be a dangerous spot for him.
I do.
Ryan, anything other than what Matt had said on Brevin Jordan?
No, he's like you said, he's got really good hands. Yards after the catch is really impressive. 9.3 yards after the catch this year. So he actually shows a lot of good bursts, a lot of really good acceleration, makes quick cuts in the open field. He showed a lot of improvement in his route running from last year, but I think that's a lot because he lined up in the slot a lot more. They changed their offensive playbook this past season, so they lined him up outside in the slot a lot more than as opposed to being an inline tight end. The only thing I didn't really like about him was the fact that he played in 4 different offensive systems past 3 seasons at Miami, and he isn't great at contested catches, which I'd like to see a little bit more, especially out of a tight end. But other than that, I actually do like him a lot. He does need to work on his blocking a little bit in order to be – I think he's a little bit scheme dependent right now. But if he works at his blocking and gets to the – I don't think he'd be as good of a blocker as Freiermuth is, and that's why I have Jordan as my tight end 3. But he's just a better – Freiermuth is just a better overall tight end in my opinion. But he's going to be good. He's got a lot of potential as a receiving tight end for sure.
Matt, if you're wondering about the response there, is it because Ryan just copies my rankings? At least I'm like 90%
he reads the threads,
sure.
Right?
Yeah, he reads the thread. I think he's just rereading those and then ranks them himself. It calls him he flips 1 or 2. You know what I mean? To make it look like he's writing a high school essay, but no, that's why we show together, right? Because we like too many things together, I guess, apparently, but. No, I agree. I think a lot. Honestly, I thought Jordan was going to be a better blocker from what I had originally thought.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something that does concern me. I think, honestly, I thought Pitts was going to be the worst of the blockers. And I honestly think Jordan kind of is of these top 3. I think Jordan could use the most improvement. I think Kyle Pitts actually was better than I thought he was going to be, at least as a blocker.
I agree with that.
So I just, everything I'd heard mostly in like the little bit that I've seen of the Florida games, that it just seemed like, Pitts was going to be this terrible blocker, but he actually is pretty good once we get to him. I do want to kind of cruise through these here.
So why do you guys love Freiermuth here?
Because he's Baby Gronk. You know what I mean? When you get a nickname as Baby Gronk, I mean, come on, right? I don't know. It's probably self-proclaimed, but whatever. He wears 87. That's got to mean something, right?
Oh,
but I mean,
Matt, real quick to your point. Brevin Jordan actually had the best. He actually had the best yards per route run versus man coverage in the country for tight ends. So he's gonna get open. He's gonna get open.
I think these guys are 2A, 2B. Personally, I think that I agree. Landing spot's gonna be big for both these guys. I like Freiermuth because personally, I just feel like he's a tight end. You know what I mean? He's a really good blocker. He's physical. He creates yards after the catch in multiple ways. I mean, he's not super elusive, but I mean, he's got a little wiggle, but he runs guys over. I mean, the problem is the durability. I know, like I said, he has the self-proclaimed. I don't know if it's self-proclaimed, but every tight end you look on YouTube or anything like that, they're always the next Gronk. So, but I just feel like that could be a concern. Like, can he stay healthy at the NFL level? Because everybody's hitting harder. But I don't know. I just like Freiermuth. I liked the film. I liked what he did there. I think he is I think he's a better blocker. And that's where the Hunter Long argument where you made, where he gets on the field. I think Freiermuth is going to be easier and more trustworthy to put on the field more times than not than, say, a Jordan or a Pitts. I mean, Pitts is going to be out there, but just like he does everything well. And I think that for me, when I'm looking at these guys, I like guys that are going to get on the field. And I think that that's huge for me. And I think that's why Freiermuth is 2. Ryan, why don't you expand on Freiermuth?
Yeah, like you said, his physicality really popped me on tape. Like he was like one of the very first things that I saw was that he was super, super physical. Whether it be in the blocking aspect of his game or after the catch, he was just bowling people over. And he loves a stiff arm. He loves using that stiff arm. I think he's going to be a huge red zone weapon at the next level. He had 30 red zone targets and didn't have a single drop in the red zone because he's able to just kind of box people out with his size and just kind of shield defenders off. And I don't know if you noticed it a lot, but at Penn State he got like those little. I'm trying to think. He reminds me of Jason Witten a lot when he plays because he gets those little dump off like 2-yard touchdown lobs in the end zone, and he just always seems to come down with it. So he's gonna be a weapon at the next level in the red zone for sure, and he's probably the best blocker in the class. So in terms of tight ends, so like you said, he's gonna get on the field even if it's just for that. Even if somebody doesn't really believe in his receiving ability, he's gonna get on the field for that purpose. Especially if he goes to a run heavier team, but that also hurts his receiving upside. But I thought he was mocked to the Bills in round 1. I don't know. Yeah, I saw he was getting mocked. I saw him getting mocked to the Bills at 30. Yikes. So I think that's a little too high in my opinion. But he kind of reminds me, like his play style reminds me of Dawson Knox. They don't have no sleeves on or nothing like that. They just wear gloves. That's it. They just go out and play. And they're both not physical specimens, but they're both physical athletes. So
they're no gloves O'Leary though.
Yeah, nobody's no glove O'Leary.
Why don't we slip on to, I guess we'll call him the king here, huh? Kyle Pitts. Arguably, honestly, if you have anybody other than Kyle Pitts as your tight end 1, I want to hear it. I do. I really do. DM me because I just want to know the argument because this kid is just a specimen of an athlete. He's 6'5", 245. And I mean, he has an 18-year-old breakout age. He has back-to-back 600-yard seasons in a Florida offense that was not great. I mean, this year Kyle Trask kind of turned it on and they produced crazy numbers. But I mean, he had 740 yards on 47 receptions and 12 touchdowns this season. Guys, it's hard to. I know Ryan, you tweeted it out before we got on here, and the only knock on Kyle Pitts that we have collectively is he just doesn't look good in a hat. And I could be wrong. I just made it up. So if someone has a picture that he looks good in a hat, we'll make that argument. But I mean, Ryan, do you have any knocks or what are any of your concerns with Kyle Pitts at the next level?
Yeah, I don't think so. I really don't. The only little knocks that I had on him personally was that he could be a little bit more consistent with his blocking. He's not always a strong blocker. He can get, especially if somebody better leverage on him, he gets knocked around a little easily. But that's not a huge deal because I don't think he's going to be an inline tight end all that often. I think he's going to be kind of spread out to the slot a little bit more often than not. And I don't know if any of you guys noticed this, but he seems to get a little choppy at the line of scrimmage. Like he tries to get a little too fancy at the line of scrimmage. He chops his feet or he kind of get like a little shimmy shake before he gets moving. And I don't think he needs to do that with how big of an athletic freak that he is. Like he's too big and too physical for corners to cover him, and he's too fast and too good of a route runner for linebackers to cover him. So I didn't understand on tape why he was sitting there like chopping his feet and kind of trying to get fancy with his releases at the line of scrimmage. Because he never really had to do that. Like he wins with his hands. You see him beating Patrick Surtain on slant routes, and you see him beating J.C. Horn on the same routes and things like that. So, and those are two of the top corners in the draft. So I didn't understand that aspect of his game on tape. But overall, I mean, I don't really see how anybody can argue with him as tight end 1 in the class, and possibly even if you want to call him a wide receiver, he's probably wide receiver 1 or 2 in the class. So it's not wherever he's going to go, he's going to be.
I wouldn't get crazy with saying he's wide receiver 1 or 2. I'm comfortable with tight end 1, but I mean, if he drifts over into that wide receiver range, he gets a little less enticing to me. But Matt, how do you feel about Kyle Pitts?
I think his sheer size is some of the most astounding what he can do at his size that I've seen. I think that his red zone ability is some of the best that we've seen. I think his ability to high point a catch, to use his hands, to have tough hands and bring the ball down. He doesn't use a lot of that body catching that we see from some college tight ends. I think that the one knock, if I had to even knock him, I think he's a better blocker than people even give him credit for. But if I had to knock him, I guess he could be a better overall blocker. But I don't think an NFL team's looking to draft Kyle Pitts and say, let's block for 65% of snaps. I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm not too worried about it. Like Ryan mentioned, he could see himself lining up in the slot. He could find those moments where he's not on the line and where he's going to be able to make a move and get across the field and gain you some yards and pick up yak because he's just a freak, right? So I really like Kyle Pitts, and I think it's unfortunate to say that I might not have a share. So I'm not the happiest with it, but I guess I'll have to go overpay.
I think here's where you're going to get your share, and this is going to be, I may get crucified for this on Twitter, but I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I think that his hype at the moment is like tight end 4, and when he comes in at like tight end 8, everybody's going to be pissed, and you might be able to find a window in there. Huh?
I would be so happy. Like, even if you take it.
I just think that there's just a track record with tight ends. Like, I mean, I know he's like a crazy specimen, but I just think that there's a very good chance he finishes tight end 8 before he finishes tight end 4 in his rookie season. But I agree. I think he's like he needs to go somewhere that they're going to use him like Darren Waller's used in Vegas. And I don't know where that place is, to be honest. I know I've seen a lot of people have him in Atlanta. But I don't like that. I mean, you have Julio, you have Russell Gage, you have Calvin Ridley. I mean, I know that Arthur Smith's there, and then the argument is, he's going to have that where he's going to be like that John, he's going to be a target. But I just feel like I don't love that. You know, I mean,
I like Buffalo, but I don't think that happens at 30.
I don't. Honestly, I don't like it. I mean, I'm a Bills fan, and I mean, I think he's great talent. I just think it's another team that you could argue. Like, you're going to argue that possibly Carolina needs one. Well, Carolina just doesn't throw to tight ends. Like, back to that scheme that you had mentioned before.
Right.
Arizona doesn't throw to tight ends. I mean, Cincinnati makes sense, and I would love him in Cincinnati. I think versus Jamar Chase, I get that there's the connection with Burrow, but I think adding a tight end in Cincinnati as their third option is much better than Jamar Chase, in my opinion. I think if he falls to them, I think that would be great. I don't know how you guys feel about that, or if you guys have a preferred landing spot for, say, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, mine Buffalo. I think that's I think he's that kind of, not necessarily a transcendent talent, but I think he's an elite talent. I think he's going to get his touches. He's going to be manufactured touches to some extent. Add him in with a Buffalo offense that looked to get things rolling last year and to look to stay at least consistent with what they were doing last year. I love everything about it, right? Those yards got to go to somebody. You can open up the middle of the field a little more. I really like Buffalo as a landing spot for either him or Brevin Jordan this offseason. I really hope that's where one of them ends up going. It's a wait-and-see game at this point, but I think Pitts is going to be manufactured touches just about anywhere he goes unless he slips down to, like, New England, and then, God, please don't.
Could you imagine that one? Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts. Jeez, I don't think Pitts falls out of 10. I mean, the Bills would be a pretty interesting landing spot. But Ryan, is there someone else that you think, aside from, say, Cincinnati or Buffalo?
Honestly, no, because I don't think he's one of the rare ones that isn't going to be scheme specific. Like, he you're going to draft him in the top 10. You're going to get him touches. Like if Evan Ingram can get 64 catches his rookie year, Kyle Pitts can definitely get 64 catches in his rookie year. So, do I think that he can finish?
Are you trying to say Evan Ingram's not good?
Does he watch this?
Careful. Giants fans, I've heard. I don't know, but Giants fans, I heard, are pretty. I mean, you've got a Barkley jersey on here. I'm mad. He might come at you. He might find out what it is.
I'm a Barkley fan.
Yeah, but no, like I said, if Evan Ingram can get 64 catches for 700 yards and 6 touchdowns, Kyle Pitts can most certainly reach that because I feel like he's a much better prospect than even Evan Ingram was. And I actually liked Evan Ingram kind of college, so it's just he's just so physically gifted and so he's just unbelievable. His catch radius, the fact that how he high points the ball so well, like he's going to be a red zone threat because, like I said, too big and too physical for corners, and he's too good of a route runner and too fast for linebackers to cover. Like, how are you going to cover him in the red zone? You're gonna put. I mean, you're gonna have to double him with bracket coverage, and just if he gets drafted to somebody like Carolina, then you got DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson that'll kill you too. So, if he goes to Carolina, I actually like that a lot, especially with Darnold coming in there now. I feel like Matt Rule and Joe Brady are smart enough to get him the touches that he needs in that offense. So if he goes there, I mean, he's already wheels up. Regardless, he could go to the Jets, and I feel like he'd still be wheels up. But
would that hurt your DJ Moore stock?
Don't kill my Chris Herndon stock either in the Jets, okay? I got a lot of Chris Herndon, and I am holding on, okay? Just with the Michael P. Ryan. So the Jets better stay away from running backs and tight ends for my fantasy sake, okay? I'm just saying. Don't care if they're not good. Like, it needs to happen.
Call Robert Saleh and tell him you'll fight him if he drafts.
I've already got a private investigator finding their draft room, and as soon as he goes to put that in, I'm cutting that card up and
cutting the card up.
Not happening.
You'll auto pick.
Yeah, auto drafted. Oh man, they auto drafted Davis Mills at 3. Or 2.
Good.
Anyway,
I think the Jets want a kicker at pick 2.
Yeah, right. They take a kicker because I auto draft them. Gotta love it. All right, I want to end the show today. I'm going to ask Matt because I think I see the right thing in his background. I think those are Star Wars posters, and we just started a yards per dynasty, and we voted on a Star Wars theme. So me and Ryan have 2 team names since nobody else has really picked yet. Ryan, what is yours?
Mine is. Can I give a little backstory on why my team is named this afterwards?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so. My team name is Wookiees of the Year, and I chose that because I have 13 rookies currently on my team right now.
Yeah, you're crazy.
That's very rough.
Yeah, that's going to be a rough ride. But mine is Ewok This Way, and Matt is going to pick which one he thinks is better. Yeah, putting you on the spot. He didn't even know this was coming. I just noticed it in his posters, so he's on the spot now.
Ewoks.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's what I'm saying.
I think
wow.
I'm an Ewok fan, though.
Yeah, so am I.
Oh, see, he's biased. So biased.
That was a little biased, but I didn't even know that. But
I'm in a Star Wars dynasty, and I have Pat Mahomes, so I named my team Darth Mahomes.
It's a good one. I like it. I'm not gonna lie. I looked mine up, so I can't take all the credit.
Oh, so automatically I win by default.
Yeah, I guess you can win by default. That's fine. You can.
Ryan won.
All right.
Yeah.
Too bad I saw that on the list too, so you probably looked it up and you're not lying. Anyways. Okay, sure.
Ryan's on blast.
Yeah, sure you didn't, Ryan. Anyways. All right. Matt, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you for people who joined in late?
Yeah, you guys can find me over on I'm over on the League Winners, Fantasy Football League Winners. It's a new website that launched in January. I'm a lead dynasty writer over there, so you can catch most of my work over there. I'm also a contributor for the Cut Fantasy Football. I've had a few articles posted out over there, and you can always find me on Twitter basically daily, probably tweeting too much. So if you ever need to reach me, you can always DM me there as well. I'm open to take any dynasty fantasy football questions. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you, Jeremy. I appreciate you, Ryan. It was very fun dicing it up with you guys tonight.
I appreciate you being on. I mean, I read a lot of your stuff that you post over there at League Winners. I think it's good stuff. And unfortunately, Christian was supposed to be on from the cut, but kind of I think he had launched actually another Devi show or something along those lines he had going on at the same time tonight. So we unfortunately missed him. Hopefully we'll have him on in one of the later shows this summer. But the cut also, he just released a draft guide, just like us over at Yards Per. Both of those draft guides are really informational. A lot of guys went into that, figuring both of those out. So check either, but I think both are free. I know the Yards Per one is for sure.
Yeah, I believe the cut is free this year. Yes.
And I'm
a Yards Per one.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate of getting as much rookie info as you can, unless you were watching a lot of the college games. I think it's just helpful to get other guys' opinions and kind of just see. I mean, you might have missed something in a guy that you like, go back, take a look, and realize, ooh, maybe he's not as good as I thought he was, or something along those lines. But Ryan, why don't you let everybody know what you got going on and where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Mackey_FFB. I know I said last week I was going to release my first ever rankings, but they're not quite ready yet, and I feel like I want to release them a little bit closer to the draft. So be looking for those. That Yards Per draft guide that Jeremy had mentioned there, I do have a couple of rookie profiles on there, so you go check that out. Like Matt had said, DMs are always open if you ever want to chit-chat or talk about any questions you might have, trades or lineup questions later on in the season or anything like that. But Matt, thank you for being on. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys.
For sure. Another long episode. Sorry about that. You know, anybody who actually is listening to the podcast or joined us live, just a lot of content on these rookies. It's hard to keep it under an hour when you start talking about 9 rookies. So, but yeah, you can find me. I am your host at Jeremy, and you can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. Same as the other guys, DMs are open. Most of my writing and stuff you can find on at either Yards Per's website and or the Gambling Sports Podcast Network, both of which have usually try to get 1 or 2 or at least 3 or 4 articles out a month. Take a look at any of that. And as usual, catch you guys next week.